If you're a photographer, you probably have the same issue as me. You start to buy some external hard drive, then a NAS, then a second NAS, then a third NAS, and you're like, when it's going to stop? So I have a solution for you. The first thing is you should stop shooting in RAW, because actually the JPEG are actually good enough, because usually you have the right exposure, and really if you took a photo with 2 or 3 stops at the wrong exposure, really when you're going to raise the shadows or raise the highlights, you're going to have crazy noise. You're not going to recover anything. Usually you on the shot, you take the right exposure and you have your photo, and then you're going to edit them to make them better, to make them pop. But actually all that extra information is actually not really useful. You know, that dark pixel to be a bit darker than the other one just next to it, and just not having any compression is just not going to help you actually. So first thing is to shoot JPEG. It will help a ton. But when you shoot JPEG, you still have a lot of photos and it can take a lot of space. So what's the solution? Actually, there's a new format called jpeg-xl. Usually you can't shoot directly in jpeg-xl, but you can transcode JPEG to jpeg-xl, and that conversion is actually reversible. So you can convert a jpeg-xl to JPEG, and that file would be exactly the same byte by byte to the original one you had first. So you're not losing data converting to JPEG to jpeg-xl. And even better, you can always revert back to the original. The cool thing with that format is actually you have some feature like progressive loading that allows Photoshop and other modern application to load your file faster, and you save 20% on average on each file. So if you have 1 terabyte of JPEG, because you shoot a long time lapse, then you have 200 gigabytes saved. So it's actually really significant. And if a program is not compatible with jpeg-xl, you can also email the developer and say they're just garbage, but you can always revert back to JPEG and have the original file. And the cool thing is it's conserving image quality, and it's preserving metadata. So everything byte by byte is saved. So you're not losing any data, and just what it costs is some CPU cycle. So during the night you just launch your computer and then it transforms this JPEG into JPeg-XL. JPeg-XL is open source, it's an open format, so you will always be able to open them like JPEG. And how is it possible? It's just that JPEG is a format created in 1992. So it's been 30 years old that we are improving codec and compression algorithm, and just it's time to switch to another format. So you're probably asking, why is this format not so popular? And the only reason why it's not so popular is Google having its own competitor format called AVIF, and before that was WebP, and they are just trying to push their format on the web by not allowing JPeg-XL to be supported by Google Chrome. But the problem with AVIF is you can transcode JPEG to AVIF, but when you transfer back to JPEG, you don't get the same JPEG and you lose quality. There's no back compatibility in mind in the AVIF format. And the really cool thing about that JPeg-XL, it has similar capabilities and efficiencies, but it is back compatible at its core. And us photographer, we want to keep the original data. We don't want to transfer to save some disk space. No, we want to transfer to save some disk space without losing quality, without losing data. The good news is Google is doing its thing, but Apple is also doing its thing, and Apple supports JPeg-XL natively. So in the finders you can open JPeg-XL, in the quick view you can support JPeg-XL. All the software usually that use the SDK and the API of Apple is supporting JPeg-XL, and on the Windows side you need to install some third-party software to have some previews, etc. But most of the software support JPeg-XL. If they don't support JPeg-XL, you can always pressure a bit the companies to support it, and then you can always revert back to the JPEG, which is the original file, and use that instead. So it's no big deal. So if you have to remember something from this video, is that jpeg-xl is an awesome format that is back compatible at its core, and so if you shoot JPEG, it's the perfect format. So now if you want to transcode it, there's a lot of tools to do it. There is actually some command line tools if you want to make things on the servers, and there's a tool I wrote that is called Zero Loss Compress. The good thing with that tool is that when it compresses the JPEG to jpeg-xl, it converts back the jpeg-xl to another JPEG, and then it compares byte by byte that the data is exactly the same, so you never have a surprise where you have a jpeg-xl that you can't revert back to JPEG. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description, and I hope this video was helpful. Happy transcoding!